Okay. I just want to thank everyone for joining today. We will be looking at the pricing cloud service overview with our merchandising team. I want to let everyone know that you are on mute. We are recording this call so that we can have a playback for those that did not have an opportunity to join. We'll be sending that link out after the meeting. We will accept questions at the end. We ask that if you have a question, please type it in the chat window. Don't unmute yourself, just as a courtesy to others so we can get some consistency with questions and answers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Amy Selby.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Like Angela said, we're going to be going over an overview of the pricing cloud service today. This will be more of a functional overview. So wanted to start off with kind of some of the goals that we had with this new service. So it is a separate solution from RPM, although it does have some of its legacy still with the old RPM solution. But some of the things that we were trying to do as part of the creating a modern cloud service solution, you can see here in the slide, we were trying to focus on the usability of the solution, both the screens as well as some of the processes around the solution. We were trying to simplify the overall processing, revisiting conflict checking rules, looking at how to handle some of the approval and future cost calculations, which I'll talk both a bit about as we go through the other slides. And then also look at integration. So trying to make it easier to integrate with for external solutions as well as our other Oracle retail solutions. We also introduced what we call operational insights with pricing. If you've seen similar presentations for the other merchandising solutions as we've rolled them out on the new UI, you'll have seen a similar slide where we're having some of the key components of operational insights in pricing. So a dashboard, actually two dashboards that are focused on the roles of the who's using the pricing application and trying to surface exception type activities for them to monitor. So for pricing, we have a pricing analyst dashboard and a promotional planner dashboard. And they both support in-context launch, which helps to immediately take the pricing analyst or promotional planner to where they can take action on the exceptions that are being raised in the dashboard to them. And we also have contextual BI in a number of the screens within the solution. So providing additional contextual information to the user as they're trying to make decisions on the screen. And then we leverage the notification framework as well. That's part of the overall platform. And I'll talk about each of these a little bit more here in the upcoming slides. So first, from a dashboard perspective, we went through a process similar to what we did with our other solutions in terms of trying to understand the users of our solution. So from a pricing analyst perspective, what is that user doing in the context of pricing for a retailer? And as part of that, we wanted to provide a dashboard that would highlight events that required approval. So maybe an event's been created and it had a conflict, or it just hasn't been approved and it's going into effect in the next couple of days, and it needs to get down to the store. So highlighting those to the pricing analyst so that they can prioritize their work for the day. And here's a little closer up view of what that dashboard looks like. You can see that the dashboard highlights both for clearance and regular price changes, where there are events that need approval for the current week, or that in the next 4 weeks just provides a visibility to what items are, or which events need approval. It also highlights events that have conflicts. So if the reason it's not approved is because there's a conflict with the event, it will allow them to see that conflict in the dashboard and then launch directly into the conflicts to resolve them. Another thing that you can see in the dashboard, there's a little red box here on the tiles at the top, which are summarizing all the events that need approval. And that's highlighting to the user that the events are within the emergency price change window. So if there are events that need to go into effect in the next 2 days, for example, and that's your emergency window for price changes, it's going to also highlight that to them, so those are probably what they want to address first. The promotional planner dashboard is more of a calendar view, so providing some information to the user on the types of offers that there are upcoming and kind of how they're laid out from a calendar perspective. This might help to show if maybe there's too many events or there's a gap in events that you have in your area that you may want to shift the dates around a bit to smooth that out, for example. And like with the pricing analyst dashboard, there's a link in this dashboard to allow you to go directly into the offer to make updates as needed or to see more details about it. And then from a contextual report perspective, here you can see a few examples. Really what we're trying to focus on with the contextual reports for pricing is to provide more information to the user in the context of a conflict or approving price events to help with determining whether the event has been created as they would expect. Are there other upcoming events that they need to be aware of? What's the margin currently and what it is on the event itself? How much inventory do we project that they'll have, or is there currently in that location? Will help them understand the size of the markdown or markup, etc. Okay, then switching to the key capabilities of the solution itself. Here you can see a summary of what is supported within the solution. And we'll talk about each of these bubbles. First is pricing zones. So if you're familiar with price zones in RPM, the ones that are in the pricing cloud service are similar. So you use to group locations together that will have similar pricing. One thing that's a little bit different with the pricing cloud service is that we don't have a specific type associated with the zone, so they can be used for any type of price event. They also, there's a bit of a change in how we handle the zone ID setup. So we wanted to make, from a usability perspective, it easier for users to interact with the solution and create events. So the zone IDs need to be unique across all zone groups, which allows the user to just be able to key in a zone and not have to enter both a zone group and a zone ID. From a rounding rule perspective, this will allow you to define an ends-in amount for a price change or a clearance. So if you want all of your price changes to end in 00 or 99, this can be defined using rounding rules. It's also used for initial pricing within merchandising. And you can see here that there is the ability to say that a rounding rule applies just to a price change or just a clearance, and can also be a default for those types as well. And then you can define exceptions and exclusions by either hierarchy or by currency. So if you have customers that have a currency that has, say, 2 decimal places and also in some of their stores has 3 decimal places, you can have different rounding rules for those. So initial pricing is in merchandising, but it leverages a lot of the functionality within the pricing cloud service to help that help with that process. And one of the things besides the zone groups and the rounding rules is the initial zone group definition. This is similar to what RPM did as well. It has a association between the merchandise hierarchy levels within merchandising, and a zone group is the kind of strategy, if you will, for how you want to price your stores in that hierarchy, how you want your stores grouped together. And then you would also define a markup type of either cost or retail, and a target percent to use for that hierarchy. And then also a rounding rule, if it makes sense for your business. So you can see here at the bottom an example of how that might work. So if the supplier cost is $48.10, and they have a cost-based margin defined of 50% for that particular hierarchy, and a rounding rule of ends in, then it would result in a retail price of $72 for a zone. Okay, so then switching to the events themselves, regular price changes, we'll start with those. So this is used to change the regular selling price for an item in a location. It is defined as an item, location, effective date combination. But one thing that we added in the pricing cloud service is the concept of a price change group. So that's used to create kind of a unit of work around a set of item, location, effective dates. It's can be used for mass maintenance, and really is kind of user defined in terms of how a particular user wants to define a group. One thing that's different within pricing cloud service than with RPM is that all price changes are created at the item level, and an item can be either a parent div, or transaction level item, but they're not. We're not holding price events at an item list level, for example, like in RPM. And that was really to simplify some of the processing, as well as understanding of what's in that list and the exclusions, so we don't have to have so many exclusions and exceptions. But that grouping capability still provides the ability to do mass maintenance on a set of items within a group, which is similar to what the item list was providing previously in RPM. Similar for clearance markdowns, we also have this grouping capability, and it works very similarly and is set up similarly to regular price changes. One difference with clearance is that it does have the ability to have multiple markdowns for an item within a group, so you can have that visibility within the solution to the different markdown cadences that you have set up for your items. And we also added an attribute, or also have an attribute for markdowns that allows you to define if this is a first markdown, second markdown, final markdown, etc. And that attribute is captured not only in pricing, but it's passed through to merchandising and then on to retail insights. So if you're using the retail insights solution, you can do reporting on the markdown, like how successful your markdowns were at each level. Resets are also part of a clearance group and are optional, obviously, but if you want to reset the price of your items, you can add it as almost like a type of markdown within the group. And that would reset it back to whatever the regular price was at the beginning of the current season, and ready it to be reintroduced again for a future season. So that can all be tracked through. Within RPM, that was a separate process and was managed at different levels, but with this new solution, it's managed kind of at the same level and in the same cadence as, or can be in the same cadence as the markdowns. Another feature of the pricing cloud service is that you can initiate a reset also by just creating a regular price change. So if you're bringing back an item for a new season and you also want to set a new price that it will be sold in that next season, you can do that by just creating a regular price change rather than creating a clearance reset. And that's controlled by a system option, whether you want to enable that feature for your customers. Okay, then moving on to promotions. So promotions are a way to create a temporary price reduction on items. They're only for stores. So for regular and clearance price changes, you have the option to also manage the warehouse price although that's not required. But with promotions, it's always only for stores. We did change the terminology a bit from what was in RPM for the new cloud service. So promotion is still more or less the similar definition, but within a promotion, we have what we are calling offers. And offers are really the level that the discount is managed. Those are kind of the individual set of details that get passed down to the selling solutions. So most offers are made up of two components, the conditions and the rewards. So the conditions are what does the customer need to purchase in order to qualify for the offer? And then the rewards are what do they get in return? So for conditions, it depends on the type of offer, but it can be the number of units that they need to buy or how much they need to spend. And then the rewards is similar. What's the percent off or the amount off that they get based on reaching those conditions? And here are the different offer types that are supported within the pricing cloud service. We have kind of two major groups of them, item and transaction level. And then within each group, kind of the next level down are kind of different groupings, simple discount, buy, get, or gift with purchase. One of the major changes with the pricing cloud service from what was in the older solution is that we are managing these details at a higher level. So when the promotion gets created or the offer gets created, it is held more at the level that the user is creating it within the solution. And that's the level that we're communicating it down to the selling solution. So if I create a item level simple discount for a particular department, and maybe I want to exclude a particular supplier or a brand from that, that's the level of detail that I'm sending down to the point of sale. I'm not exploding it down to the item location level, and I'm not calculating the price for that promotion. So this new concept of doing it that way was part of what we were looking at from some of those core principles, again, of usability and better integration, because that's really what we were hearing from our X-Store solution and other customers around what their POS expects, and holding it that higher level allows for better performance and integration, and less confusion too around the price calculations. So another thing that we changed with promotions was we did eliminate all of the conflict checking associated with promotions. And we also have rationalized a number of the conflicts within regular and clearance price changes as well, although we still do have conflict checking for those two price types. What we were able to do with promotions and then with some of the conflicts with price changes and clearance was to look at handling them in different ways. Now, some of it is just based on the way we're setting up the events, having them at item level, for example, for regular and clearance, keeping the promotions at the higher level. We found that a lot of the conflicts that we were doing with promotions really are handled based on the price calculation rules that occur in the store. The store already can handle which one should be applied, for example. Another way that we handled some of them was through adding some system option configurations. So one of the conflicts that used to be in place in RPM, or is still in place in RPM, is that a price change and a clearance a clearance item couldn't be on a promotion. And that was a system option, but it was also a conflict in promotions. So instead, what we've done with Pricing Cloud Service, we still have that system option that says whether or not you would allow a promotion to be overlap or apply for a clearance item. But if that is turned off and you've said for your customer they don't want promotions to apply for clearance items, then that option isn't provided to them within the promotion setup anymore. So they can only create those promotions for regular priced items. So just a couple examples. But for the conflicts that still exist, we've tried to provide some better usability around the notification process for when a conflict is found. So we're leveraging the notification framework that I mentioned earlier as part of the operational insights. And then highlighting it in the dashboards so you can see when a conflict exists and try to take action on it as soon as possible as well. And what you'll see when a conflict does exist is an icon similar to this. So this is in the dashboard, and then this is in a price event itself. And this is a clickable icon where you can drill in then to look at the details of the conflict. And here's an example of what that conflict screen looks like. So it depends on what level you access it. So if you're coming in at a group level or just for a particular item or item location. But you can see here for this particular price change, here are all the items that are in conflict. And then there's some supporting details over here in the contextual pane that help with what's the current pricing of the item, what was I trying to do when the conflict was raised. And then we also went through an effort to try to provide more clear definition of the conflicts themselves to help users with understanding what they should do to resolve the problem.
Hey, Amy, should we pause for a few questions?
Sure.
There are a few that came in. Going back to price changes and clearances, are groups optional or mandatory?
So there's always a group. It can be a one-to-one relationship if that's what you want, but yes, you have to define a group. But it's really just an ID and a description, and it's intended to provide a user kind of an easy way to pull back their price events that they're working on.
And then for initial pricing, is item VAT rate considered when rounding?
I don't think the VAT, we might have to get back on that one. I know there was an issue, open issue with that. Yeah.
And then similar to RPM, can we default reset date on clearances?
No, so the way we are handling the reset is a little bit different. So we're treating it like almost like a type of markdown. So it's a separate line item within the clearance. However, we do have the ability to set up what we're calling a clearance cadence. So saying I want to, I know I want to take this through 3 markdowns and then be out of stock and then have a reset as part of that. And that can be set up kind of all at once as part of the cadence.
All right, then for promotions, we don't have conflict check, but can we still check for negative retail, negative price?
That's not something that we're doing systematically within the pricing cloud service, because again, we're not going down to that item location level detail within the solution. We're not exploding it down to that level. That is something that I think most point of sales would do. So they would know not to apply a negative price to a customer's purchase. But one thing we are still looking at doing, and I'll talk about this kind of at the end, is from a future roadmap perspective, is we want to, right now we don't have the ability to support custom conflict check rules like RPM supports, but something similar to that is something we want to look at in the future. And so potentially that's something that could be added as a conflict check rule if that's something your customer feels like they need and can't just be handled at point of sale.
All right, and the last one is, can we plan clearances, for example, based on stock or threshold?
So right now, so that's kind of another roadmap item. So I think that's probably alluding a little bit to the price strategy capability that exists in RPM. And we are looking at bringing some of that functionality back, but we want to make sure that it makes sense within the context of some of the try simplify the overall process for what's done with price strategies in RPM, make it easier to use, and make it something that is in alignment with kind of our overall pricing strategy for Oracle Retail. So, making sure that it kind of aligns to the premises that we've laid out in terms of usability, simplification, and also making use of all of our enterprise assets. So things like offer optimization have some capabilities that can take into account a number of those stock levels and help with planning. And certainly our planning assets also can. In terms of automated pricing, we definitely want to look at some capabilities there as part of this overall solution, but it's not currently available.
All right, that was the last one.
Okay. Okay, so moving on. I think this is the last slide I have on the screens, and then we can talk a little bit more about integration. So price inquiry is another capability that we have in the solution. So this allows you to just do a lookup of what the current price is for an item in a location or a set of locations based on a date. And that can be a future date, current date, or a date in the past. And the idea here is to provide the details on a particular date for the price, and then there's some contextual reports here to provide some additional details. So, what's the current regular retail, selling retail? If it's on clearance, it might be different. What's the pricing cost, which this report isn't showing right now, but should be here, and then what the margin is based on that. And then as well as what's the next price event that's coming up for this item. So if there's a price change or clearance, it would show that here. This report is intended to give a view of what your margin is based on potentially any cost changes that are coming up as well. And then at the bottom, at the bottom here, there's also would be a list of promotions. So if there's any upcoming promotions for this particular item, they'd be displayed in a table here. Also with price inquiry, we've added a couple web services to allow external systems to inquire about price. One is what's the current price for an item location relationship that already exists. And then the other one is for item location relationships that don't exist. So if your point of sale, you have somebody returning something in the store and they're not able to find the price, they could the point of sale could call into Pricing Cloud Service to inquire what the price should be to help with that return in the store, for example. Okay, so then for other integration, kind of dividing this into inbound and outbound, because we really did want to try to look at both components of that as part of the overall strategy. For inbound integration, we looked at what RPM did with the price injector, and also what we've done within some of the other merchandising solutions around induction of data from external systems like items and purchase orders. And we tried to kind of apply both concepts with the new pricing service. And as a result, from an inbound integration perspective, we have 3 methods where prices can be injected or integrated in from an external system. One is a spreadsheet upload, and that applies for all the price types. And it uses a configurable template function similar to what we have for item and PO induction within merchandising. And those will allow you to create, update, or delete and cancel your events. We also have a web service, again, for all the price types, although for promotion, it supports create only. But for price change and clearance, we have the full create, update, and delete capabilities in the web service or services. And then we also have a bulk update, so the ability to batch in large numbers of price events from an external system again, for all price types and supporting the full create, update, and delete. And then in the diagram here on the slide, you can see we also, as part of this and leveraging these services actually, have integration with our offer optimization solution, which can recommend clearance and promotions, simple promotions for pricing. From an outbound perspective, we have a number of integration points. The main ones, of course, are with the selling solutions, so point of sale, order management, and order capture. The ability to communicate all three price types down. These do go through our BDI, or bulk data integration path. One thing that we changed a bit with promotions versus clearance and price changes is that we communicate it based on the price prior create days system option. So clearance and price changes will get communicated down to the point of sale as soon as they're approved, but promotions are held until closer to their start date. And part of that was to cut down on the number of updates that were going back and forth down to the point of sale, because that's one of the things we heard is from our customers is that they're often modifying those promotions a lot leading up to the actual event. So this cuts down on some of that network traffic and communication. So that's something to be aware of when you're working with your customers, that system option does drive when the stores or selling solutions are notified about an upcoming promotion. Another thing to call out on the promotion integration is that it does also support the ability to cancel an item, location, or the full offer once it's active, once it's started, as well as update the end date to either extend it or pull it in as needed. And then there's also integration into merchandising to update the stock ledger when the price change or clearance goes into effect. And then promotions are communicated to sales audit for auditing purposes. One thing to note here is that our merchandising does not get notified about the promotions. Again, since we're not calculating that item level retail price for promotions, for simple promotions, we're not updating our price history table or some of the promotion fields that we have had in the past in merchandising to hold that information. If that type of information is needed, that web service that we have to do the price inquiry could potentially be used for some reporting on that. Any questions before I move on to the next slide?
Yeah, probably a good time to take a few. They're starting to pile up. Can price events be created using item attributes? For example, normal item attributes or CFAs?
If you want to, I don't know if they're asking about regular or clearance or promotions here, but we do have the ability to still use an item list to add the items into a price event, so into a group. So a way to add multiple items at a time. And they can use either the merchandising item lists, or there's the ability to just upload a column of items basically from a CSV file directly onto the event, which could be created in various methods, either based on a query against those particular attributes, or using item search within merchandising to get your list of items and then extracting that into that CSV file to upload, for example. And that applies for all three price types.
All right, I think you partially addressed the next one, but just confirming, is there a way to set rules for overlapping promotions?
No. Not at this time. I think that's something that when we have the custom conflict checking rules, that is something that could be added there. And then also within the promotion planner dashboard, that was some of what we were trying to address with that, so that you could get better visibility to if that situation is occurring and that's something you don't want in your business. But a lot of customers do want. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. Does the price inquiry service support promotion inquiry?
No, it's just for regular and clearance pricing.
Can the bulk update be used for conversion?
Well, so from a conversion perspective, we actually have some notes on if you've got items that are currently on clearance when the when you're doing your cutover. There's a process for that. Actually, I'm not remembering if it's exactly the same as the bulk or if it's a separate process right now, but we have some notes documented in our conversion guide, as well as we touched on it in the conversion set, one of these sessions. So for clearance, we have a process pretty well defined. For promotions, if you do need to convert promotions over, you certainly could. You just have to probably adjust some of the dates. But yes, you could use the bulk load for that. I would expect that regular price changes wouldn't necessarily need to be converted, but if they do, you could use it for that as well.
There's a couple of roadmap related questions. One is related to setting prices based on a specific zone, so area differential, and the other is related to threshold type promotions.
Okay, I'll hold on the area differentials because I have a slide, I think, that'll talk about that, as well as some other roadmap items. For threshold, however, I guess I would say that we kind of already support that, and the way we would recommend those get set up is that they get set up as individual offers within a promotion. And one of the things that you can do within the offer creation screen is do a create from existing. So if you want to have, say, two or three different levels of thresholds for your offers, maybe one is buy 2, get 15% off, buy 3, get 20% off, buy 4, get 30% off, or something like that. You can create one of the offers and then copy that for the others, and then just adjust the buy and discount quantities. And then those all get tracked together on that particular promotion.
All right. How does clearance reset work with SIM?
The way that SIAX, I mean, the way that SIAX takes in price change and clearance is similar to what it did in the past. So I guess I don't know exactly what it does with the reset, but I know that it would take it in as a price change. It would move it back to regular price and understand what that new retail should be. Similar to when we send the reset down to the point of sale, I believe it has logic to be able to apply that.
All right, I think you covered them all for the most part now.
Okay. All right, so just a couple more slides here. Another thing that we introduced and is sort of that we introduced with this solution, because we recognize the fact that some of our customers have another pricing solution that they want to use. So as great as we think our new solution is, we understand that may not be what our customer wants to use for pricing for a variety of reasons. So to support that, and because of how tightly coupled the pricing cloud service and merchandising still are around the initial price setup, as well as keeping the stock ledger updated for regular and clearance price changes, we wanted to provide an option that would allow some what we're calling simplified pricing functionality to support those goals while still managing the bulk of pricing in an external solution. So what I've tried to do here in this slide is summarize what is included and what's not included if you're using simplified pricing. So you would still have access to a subset of the system options for configuring the solution. You would still need to set up at least one zone group and zones, as well as the initial zone definition. And then the new item and new item location pricing would be available as part of that. We also would support bulk load only of the regular and clearance price changes, as well as resets coming in from an external source. and the price event execution needed to update merchandising for those events. And then there's some housekeeping batches also that are part of that would kind of clean up the data related to those functions. However, it does not include the integration down to the selling solutions or any promotional capabilities. Those are assumed to be all managed within the external system. For the most part, online access is not available for any of the price event management, including price inquiry in this case, because again, we're assuming that all of that is being mastered in another solution. And from an error management, so if there aren't any errors on the bulk load, we are replicating the tables that hold those errors and conflicts to DAS for visibility. Okay. So that's simplified pricing. And there's details on this all in our implementation guide for pricing as well. Okay, then lastly, I just wanted to do a quick pricing cloud service versus RPM. I've tried to highlight some of these points as we've gone through, but a few more things just to call out here. I think I've talked about most of the zone and location management pieces already. One thing I didn't mention yet is location move. So you still do have the ability to move stores or warehouses between zones with the pricing cloud service, but it doesn't inherit any future events for that location when it moves out of one zone and into the new one at this point. That is still a roadmap item that we would like to address, but right now, when you move it to the new zone, it would only apply for any new events created after the move. Or if you unapprove and reapprove your event, then it would pull that new location in. For rounding rules or price guides, we do only have the ends in capability right now, but we are looking at some expansion of that to allow something that's a little bit more like the ranges of pricing that we have had that RPM supports. As we've heard, some customers still would like to leverage some of that functionality. Initial pricing, I mentioned, I think already, that there's a more immediate inheritance of price or setup of price in merchandising, unlike with RPM where there was the delay in batches that needed to run. Although the price event inheritance is still a batch process that's run in the background. Talked about the regular and clearance pricing being managed at item level. So we don't have the ability for users to add exclusions or exceptions, although there are still batch generated exceptions or exclusions that can happen if there's conflicts found in some of the like new item log processing, for example, but expect that to be much less likely to happen based on kind of the more granular level of handling those events now. Vendor-funded markdowns are supported, but they're managed within merchandising only. So before there was a component that the pricing analyst would have had to set up as part of the markdown. Now that is all kind of managed within the deals set up within merchandising. And area differentials aren't currently supported, to the question that was asked earlier, but it is still a roadmap item for us to look at adding that in the future. Again, like with all these roadmap items, we're trying to be cognizant of some of the issues that RPM had with some of these features and look at a better way to implement them in the new solution so that it aligns with some of the usability and integration and performance concepts that we've laid out. With promotions, I mentioned there's no conflict checking. And that we're integrating at that level of creation. So we're not exploding to item location. We're not calculating the retail for the simple promotion. That's all expected to be done and managed in the selling solutions that are applying those to the customer's basket. We also do have support for vendor-funded promotions, but again, that's managed within merchandising. So you're going to set up the deal with what is the vendor funding information within merchandising, and then associate those promotions that were created in the pricing cloud service with that deal. A couple other promotion types that sometimes we get asked about that we did remove and are the cheapest free and finance promotions. With cheapest free, one of the reasons we didn't include it, or actually for both of these, the reason we didn't include them initially was that Xstore doesn't support them. But I think for cheapest free, it is one that we are looking at potentially reintroducing. Finance promotions, I don't think will probably be something we bring back. Price strategies, I commented on that earlier, not currently available, but we are looking at what are the right strategies and how would we want to implement them in the new solution. Flex attributes are another thing that was available in our PM, but is not currently available within the new pricing cloud service. I think that's definitely one we will want to re-implement, and we'll look at doing something more similar to the merchandising flex attributes, CFAS, with this solution going forward. And then we've talked about custom conflict checking being something too that we're still looking at. And then just the last point here, for those who've worked with RPM before, especially those of you in an implementation role, RPM had its own codes table where a lot of reason codes and other things for the solution were managed. We've moved and consolidated all of that into the merchandising codes table, which is what we've done for a lot of our other solutions, which provides a little more flexibility for managing when when customers need to add their own reason codes or just turning on and off certain capabilities. So for example, if there are promotion types that are either not going to be used or can't be supported from a point of sale perspective, like cheapest free, for example, if we were to add that back in and you were implementing with Xstore, you'd want to turn that off to make sure that that customers there's not an issue with it being not supported in the point of sale. We moved all that to the codes table, and all of the codes that are managed within merchandising are all documenting within our pricing implementation guide. So that should be definitely a reference to take a look at when you're implementing for customers. And so to that end, last slide here, and then we can pause for more questions. This is where to find or kind of the key documents for pricing that I wanted to call out. This is just the general link to our retail documentation page, but within the pricing page, there's a number of documents. Some of these are new and you may not be aware of. Actually, we have similar documents for all of our cloud solutions. And just want to make sure, especially with pricing, that you're familiar with that. So the pricing implementation guide is definitely one that you'll want to check out. Like I said, it's got all the details on the codes that are used. So if you need to turn things on or off, or if you need to add reason codes, you know where to look. It's got all the system options and how they're used and the various settings that are available. It also has details on the conflicts and simplified pricing information, like I mentioned earlier. There's the operations guide has, the batches, integration details. The security guide is another one. We have one like this for all of our cloud solutions. Volume 2 is the one that has all the roles, duties, and privileges for pricing. So specifically, there's some around like who has the ability to approve an emergency price change, for example, that are a little bit different for pricing than maybe some of the standard roles and duties and privileges we have in the other solutions. And then we have the merchandising administration and customization and extension guides, which apply across all of our solutions, but for pricing as well. And then of course the user guides. And one thing I didn't include here, but I should have, and I will make sure Angela has this link or information when the recording is posted, but we also have a couple of white papers out on our documentation library and my Oracle support around how to use the induction capability for regular clearance and soon to be published one for promotions as well. Okay. What other questions are there?
I think right now just one unanswered. Does RPCS support USD retails with more than 2 decimals?
Yes. Yep. So pricing cloud service uses the merchandising configuration for currencies. So if you're working with a customer that has a price that is either more than 2 decimals or or they need to track a price that has more than 2 decimals or less, you'll configure the currency within merchandising to say how many decimal places are feasible for a particular retail, and that will be then used by Pricing Cloud service. Okay.
That's it for now in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
if anyone, I just want to ask if anybody else has any other questions, please feel free to just type them in the chat line so we can get them answered.
Yep, and while you're thinking about that, just quickly, so we are going to be adding some additional sessions. I don't think all of them have been scheduled quite yet, but these are some of the upcoming sessions that we'll be having through May and into June, I guess, for similar to this one today. So next week we're going to plan to do a overview of batch and kind of what that means in our cloud service offerings. And then we will do part 2 of the integration session that we did part 1 of a few weeks back. And then there's a couple additional more detailed components to the batch sessions that we'll be doing as well. And then covering some integration related for financials integration, our integration with WMS Cloud, and then customer ordering and how merchandising integrates with Oracle Retail Solutions on that, as well as third-party solutions.
Okay.
I did have a couple come in here. Is there any way to show competitor information?
So competitive pricing was one of the price strategies that was supported with RPM. We still do have the competitive pricing tables within merchandising. So it's, for whatever reason, it's in merchandising, not in pricing. But if you do have competitor price information that you're capturing, that can be uploaded. We have a spreadsheet upload capability for that. And then you could build some custom reports based on comparing, price activity and Pricing Cloud service and what your competitors are doing.
Yeah, so not visible out of the box, but I think some of the contextual report components that are available could be used there. So
yeah, and that's the details on how to build your own contextual reports or dashboard reports are detailed out in this guide, as well as if you want to go back and listen to the session we did on that topic a few weeks back.
There's a question about on-prem versus cloud. They are the same code base. So with V19,
Yes.
on-prem and cloud are effectively the same. So as described here.
Yep, that's right.
Without pricing solution, do we still need to set up pricing zone group for RMS? So it's in the simplified.
Yes, you will need to set up at least one zone group and zones to cover your locations, because our merchandising still uses that for initial pricing.
Is customer segment events on the roadmap?
So customer segments are right now not something we're looking at and probably won't be. That's something that our customer engagement solution supports, more customer segmented promotions. So from an overall enterprise Oracle Retail pricing view, that's the solution where we would target if you have a customer who has a lot of customer targeted promotions, to use that. Now, if there's a really simple way that you want to manage your customers and customer segments, I think one thing we've talked about is when we are able to reintroduce flex attributes, those might be able to be used to capture the customer that it applies to if your point of sale can interpret that. But again, that's not quite available yet today either. But that might be a way to make that work for your customer if they don't need the full customer engagement functionality.
Okay, I think that's all of the questions, Amy, and we're coming up at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for sharing all this information concerning pricing.